Good afternoon, Success Academy Union Square, second through fourth grade scholars. Missing you all so much. Um, let's get right into our chess video for today. So today I want to talk about the Fianchettoed Bishop, and eventually we're going to translate this conversation into the missing defensive bishop, or the weak dark squares. So a Fianchettoed Bishop, let's discuss that first, or a Fianchetto, depending on how you pronounce it, but I like to put the hard H into it. So the Fianchettoed Bishop is the development of a bishop by moving it one square to a long diagonal, so we can see this long diagonal of the board. Conventionally, you would get the bishop out maybe to a square like c5, which points to the weak square for white, which is f2, because it's only defended by the king. But we're going to fianchetto this bishop and put it on a long diagonal, which can be useful for attacking the queen side of the board in a chess game, or just the opposite side of the board in a chess game. So it is a good bishop to control the diagonal, and they become dangerous. The bad part about fianchetto bishops is that if it is exchanged, it leaves a very big hole in front of the king, and that's what we do not want. It gives us a target if you are the opposite color. So let's take a look. So just gonna go through a few moves for you, just so we can see what I'm talking about. So we have some conventional chess moves: e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, developing towards our center here, and bishop b5. Keep in mind that white is trying to remove the guard. Easy tactic: if bishop takes knight and one of these pawns capture back, this pawn on e5 is now free for capturing. So knight f6, knight f3, and g6. So now we realize that they are about to fianchetto their bishop. White castles, not the restaurant, and bishop g7. So now bishop g7, and we accomplish our goal of putting this bishop on the long diagonal. A lot of my high-level tournament players, they play the Sicilian Dragon, and the Sicilian Dragon, this would be your dragon bishop, just so you can have it for a context. So d3, and then here black safely castles. You must always, after you fianchetto your bishop, you must almost immediately castle. Unless one of your pieces are under attack, you must immediately castle after. Lots of chess games I've seen where castling comes after, sometimes 2 moves after, but it needs to come very quickly. You need to castle your king, okay? So let's take a look at when these dark squares are weak and the king doesn't have the protection of this fianchetto bishop. So this is a typical pattern for this checkmate. My first question to you is, which square in front of the king, the pawn cover, right? We call this the pawn cover, is missing. And of course, you would guess the square g7 instantly. This g7 square is under attack, and it is vulnerable. It's only defended by the king, which makes it a very weak square, okay? Then we want to count our attackers and defenders in chess. So in chess, we realize a good key, or a good time that I know scholars are really understanding chess on a high level is when they no longer think in pieces, but they think in squares, okay? So this bishop is one attacker here, and we have one defender here with this king. And in chess, in order to attack or feel like we have control of a square or a piece, we need to have more attackers than defenders, more attackers than defenders. So how can white come up with a plan to safely attack this square on g7 again? Right, I see 3 ways, right? I think we can put this queen up to f6, pardon me, threatening checkmate here. We can bring the queen over to d4, threatening checkmate on g7 again, and even bringing the queen over to b2, putting the king in a checkmate threat, okay? So you have to look at all 3 of these key squares. So we realize that we want to attack on this long diagonal. Okay, and now we have this second part. Again, we're threatening mate. After white moves, after black moves, it seems like this is the only forcing move. Oops. Ooh, no, let's not do that. I'm just gonna make another move here. If black does his own forcing move, this is checkmate. So let's take a look at an example here. Keep in mind that again, This can be done with a pawn as well. The pawn and queen could be interchangeable as well in this position, but overall, the bishop and the pawn can also be interchangeable. We can have a pawn here on f6 or h6 and still make checkmate threats. So I just want to show you that. Keep that in mind. Still more attackers than defenders. 2 attackers, 1 defender. So this square becomes very weak and very vulnerable. So my first question to you is, which square is vulnerable right now? Yes, G7. But if you are looking beyond and looking at the entire diagonal, we realize that the square H8 is also vulnerable. If I can get a piece of this magical square H8, it will be a checkmate. So white wants to come up with a plan. Where could white move to prepare and get a piece of the square H8? I agree, rook H7. Oops, rook H2, pardon me. Rook H2 is correct. And I can move my rook anywhere on this file after I move this rook. Can anybody find checkmate in 1? 100% correct. Rook H8 would then be checkmate. Let's take a look at another example. So in this example, okay, we have more pieces on the board, but this is not for you to be intimidated by. This is totally fine. This is 100% fine. Sometimes in chess, in order to achieve our goal, when we realize we have a setup for a pattern, we need to do whatever it takes to open up this file or open up these lines, open up this diagonal to get our piece to this magical G7 square. So what pieces are impeding my pieces from getting to this G7 square? Right, this bishop is stopping me. So how can I get rid of this bishop? I agree, rook takes e5. I'm gonna sacrifice our rook. D takes e5, they're gonna capture back. And then I need to make this square available for my queen so I can come in and continue my pattern of this G7 checkmate. If I move to G7 now, my pawn will just, the black pawn will just capture the queen and then we're just gonna lose the game. So I need to find a way to get rid, with a force, to get rid of this pawn. I agree, knight takes e7, check. Yes, your queen's in danger, I agree, but you have the power of the check. The king or black must respond to this move. I do have the option of capturing, but that's okay. I think it's still gonna lead to queen f6, and I don't think there's a way to really stop this checkmate here. We can delay it with the move like queen f8, but I'm just going to take your queen, and I think I'm gonna be okay here. Actually, this is still checkmate, so that doesn't work. My other option here is to simply move my king away, and then we have an even better, easier forced checkmate in 2. Look for your checks, look for your checks, look for your checks, and recognize your pattern. We have 1 attacker, 1 defender. We need a second attacker of the square. Yes, queen f6, and that is checkmate, because the knight will not allow us to move back over to g8. Let's try another example. Okay. A bishop on h6 also assists in back rank checkmates, okay? So we need to make one of those threats that we discussed earlier of the square g7, 1 defender, we have 1 attacker. Right now, this square doesn't seem available to us. The queen can't get here in the next move. We probably could move up to e4, but that doesn't seem too safe because the queen would capture us. b2 doesn't look available because the queen would capture us. So it seems like queen c3 is the way to go here, okay? We're also threatening queen takes c7. So there's two threats. Queen takes c8, rook takes c8, rook takes c8, queen d8, and rook takes d8 would be checkmate. We are also threatening the super simple, mate, which is queen g7. Okay. So after queen c3, f6 follows because we want to block and stop that queen from getting to this mating square. But then again, after queen takes c8, I think checkmate is inevitable. Rook takes c8, rook takes c8, check. Again, we don't have to take this queen back. We really don't. We could bring the knight out, but now I'm just gonna retreat my queen here and I'm up an entire piece. I'm up an extra piece. So that might be the best way to stop the game, but after rook takes, which this queen is too enticing knight to capture, queen d8, and then we have this nice check here, but this is not checkmate yet. After king f7, there's a mate in 1. Can anybody find it? Yes, 100%. Rook f8 is checkmate. Why can I not move to this square? Yes, you can't move to e6 because the pawn on d6. Okay, 2 more examples here. And we have this example right here. After threatening this square. There is a cool sacrifice. We're going to sacrifice our queen just to open up this file because our square is h8. Queen takes h6. The queen is too sweet not to capture, so we take, and rook takes back on h6. And after rook takes h6, checkmate cannot be prevented. We could move away and we'll try to run away, but the bishop guards this very key escape square, which is e7. And for our last example today, okay, you can also stop your video and ask yourselves these questions on the side. That's what I would ask club kids, but no need to do that here today. We have our pawn here attacking g7. We need to get a second piece to attack g7. Yep, I agree, queen f6. No, I'm just tricking you. The knight can capture here on f6. You lose your queen, you lose the game. So we need to get rid of this knight first. How are we gonna get rid of this knight first? Yes, knight c5 first. We must distract this knight. Knight c5 is the move first. After knight captures c5, which is not a very accurate move, but a move to illustrate our point, queen f6 ends the game. No matter what we do here, it will lead to a queen g7 checkmate. If you like this video today, make sure you like, share, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your parents. If they don't know how to play chess, introduce them to the game. I hope you like this video. I'll see you next time. And most importantly, keep being safe. Bye, friends.